Okay, so we're good there. Now let's figure out our shoreline here really quick. We already did some of these angled strokes because the shoreline does angle down like that. And I'll sometimes do strokes like this to remind me just, how the scene is supposed to look. Okay, so I got a bit of an idea already. Let's get this shoreline figured out. I'll just stick with this number 6 brush, and I'm going to take some alizarin and some viridium. Just mix kind of a dark tone. Keep it a little more on the alizarin side, just slightly. Now, couple things with shorelines. It's really tricky, especially if you're more of a beginner. You have a tendency to just do something like this. Okay, that does not look good. It doesn't feel right. It's not right. Okay, because that's not how water is. That's not how shorelines act. And we've talked about this quite a bit in other videos where we have water, but I'm going to talk about it again. You got to remember, water is flat. It's going to go straight across like this. You want to feel that flatness in your painting. I obviously don't want to leave those lines there, but the water is flat. So I'm going to draw this shoreline to kind of represent that flatness. How would the shoreline go if we're coming down and running into a flat plane? It's going to kind of angle in and out like this as it comes towards us. It's not going to be just a perfect arc like this that you draw with the line. Some areas are going to jettison out a little bit more, and when they hit the water, they're going to be flat. So your overall feeling, if you will, is like this, and it goes flat. And then it might go like this, and then flat again, and like this, and flat down here. That's a big time oversimplification of it, but that's essentially what you have going on. Is that the shoreline comes down, it hits that flat water. It comes down, then it comes back and hits that flat water. That's how you want to think about it from a structural perspective. That's why you cannot go like this for your shoreline, because it doesn't represent this coming down and hitting that flat water like we showed there. Now, taking that same principle, I'm actually going to switch to a smaller brush because it's going to be just easier to draw it. I'm going to switch to an ivory flat number 2 brush that I have. You don't have to do this, but I'm doing this just so we can illustrate this. And this is the stuff when you take my courses and that, if I don't usually watch the video on that, because especially if you don't have a lot of time, this right here is the stuff you want to glean from this, okay? That's going to help you with your other paintings. You're probably going to do other paintings that are going to have water in it, okay? So this is the golden goose right here that you want to remember as a takeaway, all right? Now let's go back to this here. Let's take that same principle I showed you with the shoreline. Coming down like this, over, coming down like this, over, and notice how we're progressing closer as we do this. Okay, coming down like this, over. All right, that's the overall structural feeling, but these obviously have to connect, okay? So how do we connect that? Well, we don't want this to be perfectly even. Okay, so we want to connect this with this down here, which is closer to us. All right, well, we can do maybe another thing comes down like that, and then it comes in like this. Okay, and then it comes over like that, and then it comes like this, and maybe this one goes further. You're basically just taking that same principle and making a variety. Now I'm going to get rid of the arcs here and just focus on the line down here. Something like that. That's going to feel a lot more natural. That's definitely not perfect, but that's the principle you want to go with. Fortunately, my paint is not. I'm going to switch to blue and burnt sienna. But that's the principle you want to get. Where it's meeting the water, it's got to be flat. And then where that flatness kind of disappears, it's going to disappear behind another arc of land coming up and blocking this line right here. So this comes up and it blocks this line, but then where this meets the water, that's going to be flat, okay? Now, this is an exaggeration. It is not completely like this. So let me go back to a more natural approach, all right? And let me take the burnt sienna and ultramarine blue. And I don't do those slants like that, but that's how I'm thinking. That's what I'm feeling when I do this. So go back, do a shoreline. And you can have a little bit of an angle at times, but you still want to be very careful because that water's got to feel flat. And I don't even like that. I'm probably going to alter that, but it works for now, at least to get something started. And then, of course, this comes up like that. That's too even, Steven. Maybe we'll have this one come back a lot longer and then have it come down like that. So I want to think variety. This one comes down and cuts across short. This one's longer. This one's a lot longer. Maybe a little divot in here as it comes down. Then we terminate there and then we come down to this one here, so on and so forth. So that's a little more natural looking than just doing the good old-fashioned curve like that, which just does not look natural when you do it. Does that make sense to our studio audience here?
Not sure.
You're not sure? I can demo it again because I'd rather demo this and really have you get this down. I think we have the time. Okay, so in fact, let me do this. Okay, so we know we have a shoreline somewhere about here that has to come in like that, all right? The first thing to remember is that water is flat. Even if it's got waves, it is still flat. And the overall body of water, you must always think about that. Water seeks the lowest surface, it's flat. So let's just draw some flat lines across our water to just kind of get the feeling of that flatness like that. And think of it almost like a floor. You could even do something like that too. That's the surface of our water, okay? Now, this flat surface terminates at a chunk of land that goes up like this, okay, in angles, in contours. I'm drawing contour lines, okay? It terminates into something like this. So you with me so far? And these things are not going to be perfectly even. If we're dealing with, if we're dealing with the man-made structure, that's different, but we're not. We're dealing with nature, okay? And in some areas, you're going to have little chunks of this land that are going to come up over and hide some of the contour that's behind it, so on and so forth. So as far as where the water meets the shoreline, you can't just do a curve like this, like a beginner would, because you can see that that doesn't connect the flatness with this shape here naturally. It just doesn't even feel right when I look at it. Okay, it almost defies the feeling of this flatness. Can you see how that just does not connect, that curve does not connect these two forms, this slanted form and this flat form? Do you see how that works or doesn't work actually? So let me get rid of that. So once again, we're contending with coming down to the shoreline like that. Now, if some people have built this shoreline, if this were like a marina or something, you could maybe have a situation where this would just come straight out like that, and you would have your flat plane of water run right into this slant like that. And you'd be good. That actually could work. However, this is not man-made. This was nature-made. So we have a lot of variety in. So what's going to happen there is some of this contour is going to come out further than others. I'm totally making a mess of this, but hopefully you can still see. So like maybe this contour land's going to come out further in the water on this flat plane than maybe this one back here, okay? And maybe this contour, we're going to have another contour line that's going to come down to maybe about here. And let me try to get rid of the middle ones because I know I'm getting really messy here, which can probably make it a little challenging to see. Okay, so we have our flat surface. We had a chunk of land, a contour line coming to here. Then we had another one coming only to here. Then we had another one coming about here. And then maybe another one comes like this. And they terminate on the flat surface of the water at different locations. Then another one, let me get this wet, comes down to about here. All right? So when these come down, this chunk of land, it's hitting this flat surface. So this is a little bit of an oversimplification, but you have to kind of go like that to represent that flat surface. Right there, and then right here, and then right here, and then right there. And then this one comes back like that. All right? This is a big time simplification of how this works. But does that kind of make sense to you right now? How these things will come out, different masses of land, because it's varied in here, and it's going to come out in different spots on the water. Can you kind of visualize that and see that?
Yes.
Okay, so this is still thinking two-dimensionally, all right? I mean, well, this is three-dimensional here, but this is thinking two-dimensionally so far, all right? Now we got to think three-dimensionally with this. So this chunk of land has got to connect with this chunk of land here. And we have this two-dimensional thinking, however, it's three-dimensional. So this is where we can start to put a little variety in that line. So let me go back in and erase this line. So I got to connect this point with this point. I can go like this. All right, that's still going across this. It still feels like it's going across this flat plane here. But it's a little wonky. It doesn't feel quite so natural still. All right, so instead of just doing that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back, maybe step it down just a bit, come back, and then like that. All right, this one here is going to probably curve. This one might come in at an angle like that, and it's just going to disappear behind this contour of land that's blocking our total view of that, and then just jettisons out here. And in this one, you can come flat in. You can maybe come in at a little bit of an angle. Maybe a little bit of contour comes out here, and then it comes back, and then it starts going back in. But basically, whatever you do, you got to make it feel like this is coming down and hitting a flat surface here, and that it's connecting with a flat surface. This one here, we could just have this come back, and then it just terminates there. We can take this and come back just like that. But see how, this is, once again, it's an oversimplification, but I talked earlier in the class about feeling form and about that whole Kaiman-Nicolaides natural way to draw approach where he had you try to feel the form. And this is what this is. You're just really trying to get that feeling of form in there between the landscape and the water. That's why this won't work, just doing a curve like that, because it doesn't represent all this variety of different contours, and it doesn't represent the feeling of it connecting with the flat surface. By the way, you guys...
This is very helpful lecture because you normally just tell us to go right, go left, go up, and go longer here, go taller here. Just follow my brush stroke, and this is good to have a conversation like this.
Cool. And that's awesome. That's the way we do the live classes. Because honestly, I'd rather not finish this and have you guys learn these principles and walk away, hey, I really know something, I really learned something, and this will help me in my other paintings. Then, oh, I did this nice little painting in Jason's class and I got, 500 thumbs up on Instagram for it. That doesn't really get you anywhere as far as progressing as an artist. So I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
Well, that I agree because I think I'm getting good at copying a painting, but when it comes to doing it myself, I don't know. I can't explain to myself why.
Yeah, and that's so important. You need to know how to explain things to yourself, and either know one of two things. You either need to be able to really feel it instinctively, and that just comes from a long time of doing it, or you just have a knack that you were given, or you need to be able to explain it to yourself. So I'm gonna go in and just kind of put this shoreline in, and this is the way I do it. I just try to feel. This is going back to the instinctive approach. I put my brush here and I put it sideways. This is how far I'll go with this. So let me get a big brush and tell you how I do it. I take a flat brush and I will flip it sideways, and I actually pretend that I'm setting it on a surface of ice, if you will. Okay? And that I'm using almost, my paint is almost like clay, and I'm setting that down. And notice how I will move my brush back and forth as if I can't push my brush down like this because I'll break the surface. Okay? I actually have to keep it on the surface and just kind of bring it towards me like that. That's honestly how I do it. All right? Now, I gave the explanation, and that just comes from, I just spent a lot of time sketching from life. And in sketching from life, I just kind of did it. I just kind of learned it. But that's my trick, if you will, is I just pretend that my brush, in fact, I use it, like I said, I use the side of a flat brush. That's how far I'll go. And then I'm just setting it down here, and I pretend that this whole surface here that recedes back to here is just a flat, hard surface that I have to put some clay down, if you will, or some dirt or some mass. And that's how I get there.